Dear all, I have a great pleasure and an honor today to have a conversation with Aleksandra Spalińska. She's a powerful emerging lady scholar, and she's associate professor at Polish Academy of Sciences. She's visiting fellow at European University Institute in Florence, and she's a research associate of University of Sussex. So very many important titles for such a, let's say it, young scholar. But it's great to see that your career is progressing really rapidly. And today's conversation will be about the neomedievality, which is like the research matter that you're researching. Alexandra, is great having you today here on the channel.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and also thank you for having me here.
The pleasure will be all mine, and I hope the pleasure will be also on the side of the listeners. Okay, so without much further ado, let's go to our today's agenda. So my first question is a little bit like controversial, or I will try to pull you a little bit. So, did we really read the same Headley book? You know, because I remembered maybe 10 years ago, I actually organized a seminar when I gave the seminar participants to read like the last chapters of Anarchical Society, where Bull is writing about the neo-medievality. And we also read Randall Schweller's book about entropical entropical international system as like two takes on what is happening with the international, well, system society, however you call it, and the possibility to manage it in a sense. And now for me, the Bull's notion of normativity is pretty playful. I think he's trying to explore like the logical consequences of his own thinking, yeah, and trying to show that like that this is a logical possibility, yet for him it is something that is very unlikely empirically. At least that's my reading. Whereas for you, you took him like, so for me it's like rather, you know, like intellectually playful, yeah, but you have taken him seriously, yeah. And as I understand is he is an important point of departure in your own thinking. So what changed during those 10 years? What happened? What are your reasons to take his notion of neo-medievalism seriously?
Well, first of all, it's not only Hadley Bull. Hadley Bull was or is considered the father of new medievalism in IR. However, there was a lot of other scholars who followed him or who criticized him, and that's why I decided to use the formulation Hadley Bull's formulation of new medievalism as a point of departure for my research, and 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 that's why Hadley Bull is an important figure in my dissertation. However, as I said, it's his thinking is a point of departure for me. So basically, that's how I'm starting my research. But I'm proceeding to analyze other scholars' contribution to the debate on new medievalism, and also to present my own contribution based on my research that. Fills in the gaps in the knowledge about new medievalism and in the development of the idea in literature. And the problem is that well, Hadley Bull used historical analogy as his heuristic device, so let's say, and that was heavily criticized by historical IR because it's only an analogy and a metaphor. And as you know, metaphors are never fully accurate.
Mhm.
And they are shortcuts that we use to exercise our imagination, to be playful, as you said, be playful with our subject matter, and for example, um, also with our thinking about politics, especially in the context of imaging the future. And well, that's well, the problem is historical analogy is not always like fully accurate, both in terms of what we can see around us and what we can consider as a possible future. as well as in the context of, for example, to exactly which part of medieval era the historical analogy is referring. So
Hmm.
that was the main point of the critique, and I took this critique seriously, despite the fact, well, everyone can say that this is a very detailed critique. It's probably a little mean, and it's, well, you can always say that some idea or some theory is not fully accurate. This is kind of rhetorical argument. But anyway, I took this seriously, and I wanted to contribute to the understanding of new medievalism, and to also to, among others, to recalibrate the idea to make it also more historically accurate.
Okay, then. So, in this vein, I would ask you, so which neo-medievalism? Yeah, because the medieval times, in time of early Franks, in like 5th or 6th century, was something completely different that like the mid-medieval times in like German first German Reich, yeah, the Holy Roman Empire in like 11th century, yeah, and then again it was something entirely different. Let's say in 14th century Italy, basically it was the beginning of Renaissance. Yeah. So for you, if we would to take this historicity of the analogy seriously, the world, if it turns neo-medieval, the current world, yeah, if it turns neo-medieval, to which medieval period it will be most alike, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's very hard to say, and different scholars that contribute to new medievalism refer to different periods of medieval era. And the most popular point of reference are, as you mentioned, the Holy Roman Empire and the High Middle Ages, and or Late Middle Ages, depending on the classification. Sometimes also we can find references to the migration period, so the late antiquity and early Middle Ages. That appears especially in the context of the collapse of the Western Roman Empire and the kind of doomsday thinking today that Western civilization is on the edge of the collapse, etc. And this kind of thinking, especially in right-wing authors and right-wing discourse, because uh, new medievalism is being picked up not only by scholars but also by activists
Mhm.
and let's say public writers of different nature. So there's a lot. But anyway, as you mentioned, Holy Roman Empire is considered one of the examples. And
Mhm.
for example, Professor Jan Zielonka, in his book on Europe as New Medieval Empire, is referring to, among others, but mostly to the Holy Roman Empire as a kind of point of reference for his new medieval thinking.
You see
For
that in a sense it makes sense, yeah. So like the EU member states would be the electors
no, it wouldn't be in the context of the electors. It was in the context of the construction of boundaries and borders,
mhm,
and well, they not full functioning, and what else? The border areas, yes, and the power of the cities,
mhm.
and the well, multi-level governance. So also in the agency of the local communities. However, we need to remember that obviously this kind of analogies are, uh, well, they are shortcuts, and again, they are not fully accurate, because obviously we need to remember that the European Union still consists of independent states, and the transfer of sovereignty is only partial to the European level. So we need to be cautious about this.
Honestly, that there is a good argument to be made that it's not the transfer of sovereignty per se, depending on the definition of sovereignty, right? Because if the sovereignty is understood as the competence to give or take competences, right? Then the member state didn't give their sovereignty away as long as there is a procedure to go out of the European Union. There is this argument. I was a great fan of this argument when I was younger, but now I would say that it's
Yeah, I
rather
think
like the.
I think that we can kind of avoid this problem by referring to the concept of public authority.
Mm-hmm.
So let's the
Yeah, yeah,
transfer of partial transfer of the public authority, not necessarily
sovereignty.
sovereignty.
Yeah. Okay, I
So
like I like it. It makes sense.
yeah, and actually for me that's also important part of my research because this is specifically what I'm doing in my dissertation. Among others, I explore how the overlapping authorities and multiply loyalties develop in world politics, and I'm trying to identify empirical examples where we can find them. And the sharing public authority is one of them, including, for example, the close collaboration between the public authorities and the non-state actors in the exercising the public authority, and, for example, the provision of goods,
Mm-hmm. But
such as especially yeah,
goods as a public goods, you mean?
public
Mhm.
goods, such as the security, healthcare, governance,
Education and so on. Yeah, the.
education, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially in cities and local authorities. And for example, in the literature closely related to to the interactions between state and non-state actors and to new medievalism, we can find the concept of hybrid sovereignty
Mhm.
proposed by Professor Sfatis Srivastava, in which in which she argues that the non-state actors participate in the co-production of sovereign capacity, especially corporations, including for example, the mercenaries. And she's referring to, for example, the Blackwater in Iraq. Mm.
But isn't,
And
yeah, I remember there was like a whole cottage industry of writing papers about the privatization of violence, yeah, as a sign of waning state sovereignty. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
quite a bit older than you, so like, that was the literature that was super in vogue when I was a like 20 something year old student. Yeah, so it
yeah,
was
and
like.
I think that we need to remember that, well, mainly from purely like political science slash political philosophy perspective, it can look, I think, maybe insufficient in a way that, well, the national governments still make the decisions. But for example, when we look at the legal consequences of outsourcing public authority to non-state actors, that's a completely different story. And it's not easy to address and to explain uh, all these consequences. Of course, not to mention the social consequences. That's a different topic entirely.
So you see, because for me, and I'm not nearly as well read as you on the subject, but I still have this problem of categories. Yeah. So uh, I would say that the social reality, especially on the international milieu, is getting more and more messy and not transparent. People are lacking what I would call epistemic security. So they are not sure that they can have like the relevant knowledge about the public affair on this level, and it
Mhm,
creates the anxiety, but this anxiety calls for like new categories to be created to make
mhm.
people understand their place in the political, so to speak. That would be my let's say philosophical take on it, right? And
Yeah,
of course the idea that we were using traditionally was idea of a sovereign Westphalian state, right? That was like the default cliche through which we were perceiving the world and our relation to the politics, basically, right? But now it's getting problematic, as just as you said. Yeah, there are many reasons to perceive it as a very well messy and turbulent social system. But then again, you have those labels. One of them is neo-medievalism, but you can also have like global governance. That is, in my opinion, is like it's not the same as neo-medievalism, but tries to look at the same reality and make sense of it. And also, there is the notion that I particularly disliked when I read the book, but the older I'm getting, the more the book is growing on me. Randall Schweller's vision of entropic system. Yeah, so the information overload create too much. Interconnectedness in the system, which makes it boggy, so to speak. Yeah, so you can be swamped in it, which makes you basically lose the agency or the positive aspect of agency. Yeah, the only thing you can do is block others from doing stuff, creating hierarchies or ruling, quote unquote, right? Uh, but you will so the actors don't have the positive capacity to act, but they do have the capacity to stop, to disrupt, to destroy. In this instance, for example, I would say Russia, and then to some extent China and Iran would be such entropic agents. Yeah, in a sense. So uh, what would be your take on the comparative advantage of neo-medievity, yeah, as a concept that really can give us this epistemic security, yeah, that can like work as a lens that makes the world meaningful to us again, yeah, meaningful in this sense of our relation with the politics.
Uh, okay, thank you for this question. Well, to answer it, I would say that new medievalism, unlike those other concepts, is much more detailed because it
Mm-hmm.
refers to overlapping authorities and multiply loyalties. And immediately you have two components
Mm-hmm.
that you can try to identify in world politics, and also you have two variables: authority and loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And what is important, unlike global governance or caterarchy or a few other concepts, new medievalism refers both to the component of the um, authority, so also to the sovereignty and societal component of loyalty. And to develop new medievalism in my dissertation, I was referring to the polity formation theory,
Mm-hmm.
and combining new medievalism with polity formation theory helped me to understand better what we can mean by overlapping authorities and multiply loyalties, because polity formation theory refers to two components: external consolidation and internal structuring of the polity. And external consolidation refers to the territorial control, effective territorial control, consolidation of boundaries and borders. And the internal structuring refers to the consolidation of the civil society, internal stratification, and consolidated relationship with the state, so citizenship.
Okay, because you see, it's good that you mentioned the question of identity. I remember, I'm not necessarily sure it might have been Norman Davis, but like one of the historians that I used to read when I was much younger, and I have time for such a silly practice as reading. Um he was like painting a picture of medieval person asked who you are, yeah, and this person would say, I'm a miller, or I'm a serf, yeah, I'm a subject of this knight or this principality, or a member of this congregation, yeah. This person would say, and in the end, of course, I am the subject of the king, and I am a Christian, right? So there was just as you said, this multiple overlapping identities, loyalties, yeah, in a very
Yeah.
political sense, right? So you would say that today we are going from the situation when, let's say, 50 years ago, I would say I am a Pole. Yeah, I am a Polish person. I'm a member of Polish nation, and that would be my main identity. To now, I am. I am let's say an academic. Yeah, I am a person living in Krakow. Of course, I'm also living in Poland. I'm a Christian, and so on and so forth, right? And also, don't forget. Let's not forget, I am a citizen of European Union. Yeah, so is it about that this is the process that you are trying to scrutinize? Yeah, how we
Yes,
get
yes,
from. Okay, okay.
yes, more or less. Although loyalty in new medievalism is highly transactional, which it
Mm-hmm.
means it well similarly to so-called, let's say, medieval thinking, it refers to loyalty in exchange for services, for example, security.
Mm-hmm.
And as you've mentioned, someone asked a few centuries ago would say that he or she is a subject of the, for example, the Polish king, and that would mean not only the identification with the Polish kingdom by the loyalty
Mm-hmm.
based on security and the tradition.
Okay, but listen, if I'm thinking like that, yet I would say, or that's my historical intuition, that this loyalty based upon obligation was very much a loyalty to a person. It was highly
Yes,
personalized in,
yes,
in, in
of
medieval
course,
time,
of
right?
course.
But
Yes,
in contemporary, if I would say, okay, I am uh, I am an employee of international transnational corporation. Okay, I'm working there. I'm the worker of this corporation, and they give me multi-sport card, and I have additional health benefits. Okay, it's in
yeah,
vain what you said, yeah, because it is
yeah.
trans
It's transaction.
but and that's important thing, would you imagine like a contemporary person saying that the CEO is my liege and lord?
No, maybe not in this regard. Well, I mean, loyalty again is not only about, obligation and tradition. It's also about the transaction, the benefits that you have because you're loyal. And for example, if you look at mercenaries today and mercenaries in the past, then kind of question of loyalty based on how much they are paid
Mhm.
is kind of crucial. And you can find the examples of mercenaries switching sides during the battles, even based on who is going to get the money or not,
Well,
or
but
other
but
political or social benefits, of course, not only
yeah,
money.
but then again, you have mercenaries deeply embedded in social structure of the host country, like a Varangian Guard, for example, or
Yeah,
the Swiss Guard of the Pope. So it's like, but that's besides the point. No, no, I was joking a little bit with the corporation example, yeah. But in the end, I would strongly claim that there is something like corporate propaganda. Uh, that is geared toward creating this identity as a worker of a certain corporation. If we add to that the fact that certain corporations, for example, pay for the education of their future employees and bind them to work there, yeah, okay. Like I get what you're saying, and I can make jokes that somebody would consider their CEO as their liege lord or liege lady, yeah. But then again, I wouldn't say, looking how those people speak, yeah, the people at the high echelons of corporate power structures, uh, I wouldn't say that they would mind to be called like that, like the truth to be told. But that's beside the point. So uh, if we were talking about like the analogies, yeah, so of course we can make those wide sweeping historical analogies, but I do fancy particularly the analogies to popular culture. And as you know, I am a long standing geek of science fiction literature, yeah, and we talked about it a couple of times. So what do you think about like mm, making an analogy between what you are researching as a scholar, this concept of neomedievity, and the way the cyberpunk literature is explaining or describing the themes of this particular brand of science fiction. Do you think that like the world that is presented in, let's say, Cyberpunk 2077 is something that actually the neomedievity that you are writing about can lead to, or is it just, like a willy-nilly expression of writer's imagination?
Well, the science fiction literature is quite helpful, I believe, and I think that we know that it already proved to be helpful if we refer to, for example, Stanisław Lem, and not only in cyberpunk. But yes, I'm a little bit familiar with the topic, and I believe that yes, referring to science fiction literature can be helpful here, as the same way, in the same way as we referring to the past,
Mhm.
like like medieval past. And actually, there is a stream of research on cyberpunk and so-called retrofuturism,
Mhm.
but that's not question to me. You would need to ask my co-chair from EISA, Dr. Jochen Kleinschmidt, if you want to know more about this topic, because I'm not an
Well,
expert here.
maybe we'll be able to grab a pint at Bologna PEC conference and have a talk with Jochen about it, because like I said, I'm a geek through and through, so I would love to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yes, but I'm familiar with the aesthetic, and it's quite appealing to me. Cyberpunk is a kind of aesthetic, and in try and the attempts to imagine the future society. And I believe that there might be an overlap between the imagination of the cyberpunk and new medievalism,
But
especially
then again,
especially
I
in the
read.
terms of
Mhm.
lifestyle.
Well, and there's a point, because it's a punk for a reason. Yeah, it's called cyberpunk for a reason, and in a sense it's pretty dystopian vision of future. But do you get those dystopian vibes while doing your research on neo-medievalism? Do you think that, for whatever reason, if the world would start turning along the lines that you are writing about, will it actually bring about this more or less quote unquote bad future? Or is there a hope in neo-medievalism?
Yes, I believe that new medievalism can be an important point of reference when we are trying to imagine whether the future will be optimistic or pessimistic. And actually, we have two streams in the literature dedicated to new medievalism. One draws on a optimistic vision of the future, referring to the successful attempts to go beyond the state system and the nation state, and therefore of developing new structures and systems that would be organized differently that the politics we know today. And the other division is the pessimistic one, which refers to the doomsday scenario of, for example, the environmental catastrophe that would made the societies to kind of get back to the pre-industrial era and the struggles and hardships
But like
associated.
a technological regression per se, like the
Yes,
societal collapse and technological. Okay, okay.
yes, exactly. And well, that's the pessimistic vision. Another pessimistic vision, not related to technological collapse, is the total decline of the societal agency. So basically, living in a world dominated by private actors and powerful individuals, in which both the nation state and the civil society no longer have the agency they had previously, and we are kind of living on a mercy of powerful so-called pseudo lords and other individuals
I
like
think
that.
Varoufakis is making his call for like rent capitalism, yeah,
Yes.
that's probably something in your alley when he's saying that those technological moguls stopped to innovate quite some time ago, and right now they are just getting rent from the people that want to use their platforms, yeah. And
Yes, for example, where we can find the different visions of neo-feudalism or neomedievalism, both on the right wing and the left wing of the political debate. And of course, they are using references to feudalism and medievalism to develop their arguments, their warnings, um, catastrophic scenarios, as well as recommendations for the present politics. So we need to kind of keep that in mind. References to new medievalism are kind of rhetorical device here.
mhm. So, to be less rhetorical, but still in the realm of historical analogy. So, I always understood that despite its quote unquote messiness, the medieval times had those certain, let's say, universal themes. Yeah, one of them was civitas Christiana. Yeah, so the society of Christians. Yeah, and as left over from Rome. Yeah, the papacy and how it like
Yes,
promoted
yes.
Christianity was the universalizing factor over messy reality of medieval period. Now, what would be this universal factor in neo-medieval times, in your opinion? What could it be? Like, if we use
Well,
this
actually,
analogy.
by talking about this, you refer to the writings of York Friedrichs, because he developed new medievalism in the direction of clashing universalisms.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, new medievalism was not only about overlapping authorities and multiply loyalties, but also about the clashing universalisms that actually depend on each other.
Mm-hmm.
So he was, for example, he was referring to the competition between the papacy and the empire,
Empire. Mm-hmm.
medieval Europe, and he was claiming that today this kind of clashing universalisms we can find in the competition between the nation state and the global economy, or otherwise international politics and transnational business. And for him, these two powers, depending on classification, are the clashing universalisms of today. And well, I believe that makes sense. Well, I think that I at least partially agree with Friedrichs. However, we need to remember that this kind of universalist thinking is often quite shallow, and is also used as a uh, kind of common framing that we use to make sense of how the world works today. However, we need to remember that the universalisms were not and are not so deep as they can seem, so powerful as they can seem, and and even in medieval Europe, you can find the contestation of state of papacy, the contestation of the emperor, and attempts to to rebel and and stuff like that. So we need to remember that it's kind of these labels are not always as working in a way that we could expect.
Yeah. Well, much smarter people than me are warning against this lack of universalist thinking, that we are not talking about the universal things anymore, that we are always going to the level of the particulates. And for them, among others, my intellectual master, Professor Schlachta, who is doing his research in history of ideas connected to Catholic religion, Christian religion, and the distinction between the state and the altar. Yeah. And he's saying that there is a problem because for him, and I think I have inherited this thinking from him. So for me as well, we do have this craving for what's universal. I do agree with Saint Thomas, or earlier with Aristotle, that they are saying that this is a part of our human nature. Yeah, that as a human beings, we crave what's general. Yeah, this drive to generalization is something that makes us who we are, and thus and I'm not saying like the great narrations shown how dangerous can be and to what suffering they can lead. Yeah, but then again, if we don't have those common points of reference, uh,
Mhm.
there is a moment where the communication basically breaks down because we have no common points of reference. Yeah, so I don't know. That's why I wanted to because it's for me it's pretty grim. Yeah, that the nation state and the global business would have the same role as Christianity, or this utopia of Christian community on earth, yeah, on the one hand, and on the second hand, the splendor and powerfulness of emperor or empire itself. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting older, but those universal ideas in medievality, I don't know, are just feel more universal or more
Yeah,
splendorous or
I think they are definitely they definitely seem to be much more powerful, and well, probably they seem from our perspective also um, much more rooted in the,
coherent, or like like ostensibly you can show what is the idea behind this symbolism. Yeah.
yeah,
uh,
yeah, definitely, and also they kind of they draw on the kind of long-term meanings associated with the power. For example, Holy Roman Empire was referring to the Western Roman Empire, was building, well, was trying to build on this tradition of thinking. And so obviously I think that we don't we don't believe in
mhm, mhm,
the corporate business and as we believe in, I don't know, in the we can as in the power of the papacy of empire. Of course, that's the different category, but I think that in this context the universalism was being referred to because of uh, the the effects of the state power and the corporate power. So not in
mhm.
terms of meaning and the
Okay.
our thinking and labels that we use, but in terms of the effects of how of the power of the state and the power of corporate business, and also the effects of the power and the effects of them clashing with each other and the competition,
Oh well.
which yeah, which
Yeah.
of course affects our lives.
Yeah. Well, then again, right, it's supposed to be our job to think about those big ideas and maybe, try to figure them out and sell them to people, yeah? That's
Yeah.
that should be our job. So, Alexandra, thank you very much for this conversation. I do hope that you will be one of those thinkers that will think about big things and bring some understanding to this messy social world. And thank you very much for your time today. It was an awesome conversation, and I've learned a lot.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the invitation and for being interested in my research.
Yeah, sure, because it's fun. It's fun. I like the idea of neomedievality. I think you're doing good job. So, all pleasure. Once again, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, dear listeners, to for your time as well. I hope you liked the conversation with Alexandra.